Today's show is sponsored in part by Fulton Commons. We have had a co-working space there for a while. It's over in Manchester in this historic little neighborhood, and it's really thoughtfully decorated, like actual art on the walls, bright pops of color, these historic maps and eclectic furniture, and just so much gorgeous natural light. It really is a great place to be able to buckle down and get some work done, but also just like the experience while you're there. And all of this, of course, is just on the main floor, because downstairs is something totally different. It's a shared commercial kitchen, so fully stocked with equipment and appliances, storage, big fridges, prep areas. If you are just starting out in the food space and you've maybe outgrown your house but don't have it in you yet to go get an expensive lease on your own, this could be the perfect place for you to hone your craft and get to know other entrepreneurs. Also, if you are co-working upstairs, it can mean delicious samples. Check out Fulton Commons for yourself, for your small business, and for your food production needs. Visit fultonpgh.com to request a tour.
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, it is election season here, but the lawn signs that I've seen crop up lately, they're not about our mayoral candidates, Corey O'Connor and Tony Moreno. They are signs saying vote yes or vote no to retain our judges. How you vote could have big implications for who controls our state's highest court and how it rules on issues like voting laws and abortion access. I'm with Spotlight PA's Stephen Caruso to explain what's at stake and what you need to know before heading into the voting booth. And stick around after the episode. We've got a conversation sponsored by the Pittsburgh Opera, all about their fall lineup. It's Wednesday, October 8th. I'm Mallory Falk, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Stephen Caruso, welcome back to CityCast.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start very basic here. What is the question that people will see on their ballots this November? What are they being asked?
Voters are being asked a yes or no question. Should 3 Supreme Court justices get new 10-year terms on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court? There's a few other questions. There's a few other candidates, but that is what all the money is about. Should Kevin Dougherty, Christine Donahue, and David Wecht, who have all been on the court for 10 years, go for another, well, at least, 10 years, it's going to be 2 for Donahue. That's a separate matter, but that's the question, yes or no. And that's, you don't often get yes or no questions on your, ballot, which is, kind of new and different and exciting.
Right. And Donahue, without going too far afield, she's going to hit retirement age before those 10 years are up. But this is about, can she at least start that next term?
Yes. Hence my hesitation.
Yes. And so all of these judges, they are Democrats. 2 of them, Wecht and Donahue, are from Allegheny County. So, we got some local representation on the court right now. But let's talk about what's at stake in this election. Why is this question about whether or not to retain these judges so important? And why are people pouring lots of money into this?
So the Pennsylvania Supreme Court is made of 7 justices. A majority of the court is 4. Right now, Democrats have 5 seats, or judges elected as Democrats. This majority has ruled on everything from redistricting to labor laws to abortion, guns. Go down the list. They have ruled on cases on these weighty issues that impact everyone, if not every day of their life, at least every other day. And because of that, there's been a lot of money of folks who want to influence the agenda around these issues. For instance, this court struck down a map that was drawn for the congressional districts by Republicans as an unconstitutional gerrymander in 2018. They then commissioned and implemented their own map when then Governor Tom Wolf and the Republicans, who still controlled the General Assembly, deadlocked and had to replace it. That map brought the Commonwealth from 13-5 Republican control of the delegation to an even 9-9. They backed up Governor Tom Wolf's rulings that closed businesses during COVID. They also have ruled that, they've started to open the door to the Pennsylvania Constitution protecting abortion rights as a fundamental right that we all would have, as a right to bodily autonomy to an extent. So, yeah, I mean, this is these are important topics. And I also say, like, for Pittsburghers, the Pittsburgh's paid sick leave law was backstopped by this Pennsylvania Supreme Court. There were business groups that sued the city after they implemented, I believe, in like sometime in the 2010s. And this court said, actually, this has been the city's rights as a local government to do. So, big and small, like, all over the spectrum of issues, this court has consistently made rulings. And a lot of times, especially I think on some of the most politically thorny issues, they've sided with Democrats. And so Republicans are obviously not a fan of that. And they're putting a lot of money into trying to flip or at least defeat these three judges so that their seats will be up in 2 more years to potentially change that the way the court is structured ideologically.
Right, because when these three were elected back in 2015, that flipped the composition of the court at the time, right? It was Republican controlled. Now it is Democrat controlled. And so essentially, if you vote yes to retain these judges, then you're voting yes to retain that Democratic control of the court. If you vote no, that's opening the door to flip back to Republican control.
Yeah, and I think opening the door is the right way to put it as well, because here's the thing. These are, as we said, yes or no elections on these specific judges. If they lose retention, which has only happened once, but if they were to lose...
Once in like the whole history of electing state Supreme Court judges?
Once in the whole history of statewide judges going back to at least 1960. If it's before that, I mean, you got to be looking at some really dusty tomes to figure that out. And, I don't have that much time to go to libraries, but so
it's very rare.
It's very rare. And this is to say that, were any of these judges to lose retention, they would immediately be kicked off the court. But their seats would stay vacant. The court would still be handling, all the cases that come to it. And, there's, I think, legal questions about, well, what does it mean to go through a major election without, a full complement of justices? Could that lead to more deadlocks? Does that lead to, legal issues with the Commonwealth at large? And again, it wouldn't be on maybe a day-to-day basis, but on really big issues like that has raised some concerns. And then the other option would be that Governor Josh Shapiro and the Republican-controlled Senate agree on a replacement, but they are not able to agree to a budget. I think there's not a lot of hope that could happen. But all this to say, so that's what happens if a judge is kicked off. Then in 2027, you got to elect a new justice, and there's no guarantee Republicans will win that race. So Republicans' strategy here is banking on just can they at least kick some judges off and then reset the court in 2 years in the way by trying to run candidates and running an election that they can win.
So let's get into the whole money piece of this, which you've kind of hinted at. Like, I have seen a pretty decent number of lawn signs about the race. There have been political mailers and TV ads.
Democrats weaponized the courts against President Trump before. Now Pennsylvania's radical judges want 10 more years of unchecked power.
We held big corporations accountable when they hurt working people.
We protected access to abortion.
And your right to vote.
Even when the powerful came after it.
It sounds like maybe this is kind of unusual to have this amount of money pouring into this ballot question. Is there more of a focus on it this year than there's been in years past?
100%. In February of this year, I had a longtime GOP operative tell me that he'd had this election circled on his calendar for a long time. That 2015 loss has stung because the Supreme Court, sets the agenda on many important issues that dictate the balance of power in the state. So, there's a lot on the line when it comes to redistricting, when it comes to election laws. Money is going to flow into this race. With that said, retention races have never attracted that much money. I think one of the most expensive was barely touching $1 million each spent by both candidates directly with no outside spending. Now we've had at least one candidate who raised $1 million themselves, and there is what looks like millions of dollars more being spent. And why I say what looks like is a lot of this is coming through dark money nonprofits. These are groups that don't have a strict disclosure laws as your traditional PAC. They don't coordinate with the candidates themselves. They run their own messages, like there won't be an approved by XYZ, but they can still commentate on this election. They can still put out mailers, radio ads, digital ads, TV ads. And that means that, there's just been a lot of noise. And with the lack of disclosure that comes from Pennsylvania and federal law around this sort of spending, I can't tell you who or exactly how much is being spent. I can just point you to the ads and some information we can glean from the handful of public filings that exist.
And is this dark money going to support retention, to oppose retention, or is it actually flowing both ways?
So what we can say for sure is that there is definitely one dark money group known as Citizens for Term Limits that is running ads opposing retention. So you might have seen their text messages or mailers. They have the same address as the Commonwealth Foundation, Commonwealth Leaders Fund, and Commonwealth Partners. These are all groups for the politically super aware listeners might know this is part of a network of politically active groups that are funded by billionaire Jeff Yass, who's spent a ton of money in Pennsylvania in the last couple years.
Yeah.
Big funder, particularly of Republicans, sometimes Democrats. That's a whole other conversation. But that's been one of the biggest sources. Democrats have also, I've already seen ads from a group called Pennsylvania for Judicial Fairness. They are asking for yes votes. It is not a dark money group per se. They will file reports, but they take money from untraceable nonprofits and LLCs. They're able to. So like there's money in there that I can't tell you where it came from. I just know it's there, and they got $1 million from, Americans for a Better Future. This is kind of a lot of how politics works now, is that when you can spend money in an unlimited fashion, you can spend money that can't be traced, a lot of it's going to go towards these PACs that do that, because it makes it easier to hide who's actually, who's funding you.
Today's episode is supported in part by the Pittsburgh Opera. If you have been looking to dig into the world of operatic performance, the perfect show is coming up. The Pittsburgh Opera is Puccini's La Bohème at the Benedum Center. It's a passionate love story between the seamstress Mimi and the poet Rodolfo, set in Paris, where else? While you're at the theater, you can feel all the feels, and the show will hopefully make you laugh, bring you to tears. There's so much captivating music and just a riveting story. It's a really timeless performance. In fact, this opera, I didn't realize this, inspired the musical Rent. So if you are a fan of that, definitely book a seat at this. Tickets start at just $20 and performances run from October 18th through the 26th. There's even free childcare at the Sunday matinee. So if that sweetens the deal for you, make sure to book it in advance. Learn more at pittsburghopera.org/citycast. CityCast Pittsburgh is brought to you today by YWCA Greater Pittsburgh. If you're not familiar, this organization does such a huge variety of work here. And if you want to see some of it firsthand, there's no better event than the YWCA's annual Equity Awards. This award is all about honoring our local leaders who have really showcased their mission of eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. Everyone is invited to the luncheon and awards presentation November 14th. It's 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Westin downtown. So fancy. They're going to be raffling off some gift baskets, and kudos in advance to this year's honorees. All proceeds are going to go back to YWCA Greater Pittsburgh and all of their important work, including helping people find housing, early education programs, and so much more. Learn more and get your tickets at ywcapgh.org.
For people who do want to learn more about these judges, though, and their records, to decide for themselves whether they think, they do deserve another term, are there resources out there? Where should people look to learn more about them? And I think it is worth noting that the Pennsylvania Bar Association, which is a nonpartisan group, has recommended all three of them for new terms.
Yes, the PA Bar has. The bar is a nonpartisan, as you noted, group that represents all lawyers. They do this for every judicial election. They say, they either highly recommend, or don't recommend. Most of the don't recommends I see are usually related to a candidate just not participating in the process, so there are occasionally exceptions. You can always take a look at those. Those are going to be really legalistic and dense, but they're still helpful. Otherwise, Spotlight PA has put together a tool that's tried to run down a lot of the decisions that these judges have made. Again, I would encourage every listener to, look through that tool, if only to look at all of the issues that they care about, from gun rights to COVID to abortion to elections to everything else under the sun. These issues matter. The issues the court rules influence us. They influence our society around us. They influence who has the balance of power, and they set precedents that will be used by others. So it is worth digging into these questions. I think the best thing to do is just to try and read up on those decisions and decide, what you think. I mean, if you want to take it a step further, you will have people who tell you what matters more than looking at the results is looking at the way they got there. but a starting point at bare minimum is knowing, like, what are the cases these judges decide upon? And there's a lot there.
Okay, so it sounds like Spotlight PA is a good resource to get you started. And then if you really want to dig into all of the legalese and the thought processes, you can take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating stuff, but again, I'm paid, I think, to find it fascinating. But I also, like, please, like, the beauty of being in a representative democracy is people get to decide, make their own decisions for themselves.
What are kind of the big decisions that this court, whether it includes these 3 justices or not, what are some of the big decisions that they're going to be facing in the coming years, like especially leading up to our next presidential election, which is wild to even start thinking about that now. But like you said, this court makes a lot of decisions related to redistricting, related to voting access. So what are some of the big things that they're going to be considering coming up here?
Look, I think elections is a great place to start just because our election law is a little bit of a mess. They made a ruling just recently that said that all counties have to, if they are going to disqualify a mail-in ballot for a flaw on it, such as somebody forgetting to sign it or putting a incorrect date on it, that they have to inform the voter and develop a process by which that voter can fix it. That's a ruling which has a result that I think a lot of people would support. It's also similar things were ruled upon in the past where the court didn't support that. I mean, in general, it just kind of continues to shine a spotlight on the fact that we have a poorly constructed election code at this point that's led to a lot of legal questions. The amount of times that we've covered lawsuits and been forced to, even in the last couple of weeks, pick apart the impact of a lawsuit on people's voting processes has been a big running theme of every year since Act 77, Pennsylvania's mail-in voting law.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I mean, I mentioned abortion. The main ruling this court has made on abortion wasn't on the merits of a case, but just that a case should be retried. This was between some abortion providers and the state, claiming that the state's Medicaid system should cover abortion. This is the case that'll get very much to the heart of, is abortion protected by the state constitution? So that case is probably going to make its way back up to the Supreme Court. The justices were basically openly noting they expected that in their decisions. I would also just say that, redistricting, again, talk about things I can't believe I have to mention, but, time comes around quick. The court, if the lawmakers who draw the state house maps and the state senate maps can't agree on someone to referee their internal process by which they do it, the Supreme Court picks. And that process led to former Pitt Chancellor Mark Nordenberg chairing the most recent commission. These maps have given us, a Democratic majority in the House and a Republican majority in the Senate. Drawing the maps leads to a lot of power. Controlling the court gives you a leg up in deciding what those maps are going to look like in a couple of years. So all of this to say, and that's just scratching the surface. I don't know every single case that's been before this court. I'm sure there's so many more I'm missing, but I don't think I can understate the importance of the role a top court in a state represents. They are the final arbiter of law and order and justice for all 13 million Pennsylvanians.
Stephen Caruso, thank you so much for keeping us informed.
Thank you for having me.
And we will include a link to Stephen's reporting in Spotlight in our show notes so that you can dig even deeper into this. And stick around, don't go anywhere, because in just a second, we've got a segment sponsored by the Pittsburgh Opera. Producer Sophia Lowe is chatting with the opera's Chris Cox about their fall lineup. If you want to hear about an event that blends opera and disco, you do not want to miss it.
Hey, I'm producer Sophia Lowe, here with Chris Cox, the Director of Marketing and Communications at the Pittsburgh Opera. Hello.
Good morning.
I am so excited to have you here with us and looking forward to learning a little bit about Pittsburgh Opera's fall lineup. So going through the events list, one thing that really stands out to me is the Diamond Diva Disco. I cannot imagine what this is going to sound like. Tell me a little bit more about combining disco and opera.
The Diamond Diva Disco is going to be a fabulous evening. Again, here at the Bitz Opera Factory on Saturday, October 11th. At Pittsburgh Opera, we like to celebrate music in all its forms. So this will be a fun fusion, sort of a mashup, a very high energy kind of evening. Yes, and we're going to have some outstanding DJs playing. We have Hoagie Dreams, Jarrett Tebbets from Disco Sunday Disco, as well as Gordy G of Titletown, who will be spinning a lot of great songs and mixed in with our opera performances on October 11th.
I will definitely have to put that on my list. I'm a huge fan of Disco Sunday Disco. Did not imagine them partnering with y'all at the Pittsburgh Opera. Super cool.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we like to break barriers.
Absolutely. And then I know for the fall, one of the big productions, one that's going to be recurring, is La Boheme. There are so many chances to catch this show, and I've also heard it's a good opera for newbies. So tell me a little bit more about what it's about and why it's a good introduction to the opera world.
Yeah, you've heard right. It is a fantastic first opera for folks. So La Boheme, we have 4 performances at the Benedum Center downtown, October 18th, 21st, 24th, and 26th. It's a Saturday, Tuesday, Friday, all evenings at 7 p.m. and then Sunday, 2 p.m. matinee with free childcare, by the way. But some of the reasons that La Boheme is so popular is, absolutely beautiful music, amazing singing, right? So it's quality entertainment, for your eyes and ears. It's a great love story, right? Rodolfo and Mimi, they meet, they fall in love, then later there's a sort of misunderstanding and a breakup, and are they going to get back together again or not? It's a classic arc. It's also a great story about friendship, right? Rodolfo is one of 4 guys living in a bachelor pad in a crappy apartment, in the big city. Sort of just young and broke and trying to make it in the world kind of thing. And the friends all sort of take care of each other and look out for one another. And it's very touching. For what it's worth, it was the inspiration for the musical Rent. Rent is basically a La Boheme that takes place in the East Village in the 90s. So this was the original. And it has staying power for all kinds of good reasons.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm familiar with Ren and I like it a lot, so you've convinced me to check this out. But the opera is not a place I go to very regularly. What tips do you have for first-timers? Like, what should people expect at their first performance?
Sure. Well, we'll expect a fun, entertaining evening, where we can transport you away from, your regular world for a couple hours. Opera is very welcoming. It is very come as you are. There is no dress code. You don't have to wear, tuxedo and ball gown or anything like that. We have some folks who, hey, let's make a big night out of this and go out to dinner ahead of time and get glammed up, and that's wonderful. By all means, please go for it. Other folks just show up after work, in jeans and sweats, and that's 1,000% fine. So I know sometimes people are a little apprehensive about, am I going to fit in? The answer is yes. The opera folk are very welcoming, and we want to share this art form that we love with as many people as possible. So we welcome everyone to come on in and check it out.
Always good to hear. Are there any other common misconceptions people usually have that you just kind of want to dispel while we have you here?
Yeah, unfortunately, there are a few. People sometimes think that opera is going to be very expensive when that is not the case. We work very hard to keep our entry-level ticket prices as low as possible. $20 for La Boheme will get you in to see the show. Not a whole lot more than going out to a movie. Sometimes people also worry that they won't understand what's happening if the opera is sung in a foreign language. Mm-hmm. But we do have supertitles, so you can make sure you don't miss a single word.
Perfect. Chris, thank you so much for being here. Again, you can check out pittsburghopera.org to learn more. We'll also have that link for you in the show notes, so you're just a click away. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks so much for having me, Sophia. We look forward to seeing you at the opera.
See you there.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. A reminder that if you want to vote in this election on November 4th, if you want to weigh in about whether we should retain or not retain these judges, the deadline to register to vote is October 20th. We will include a link in the show notes so that you can get registered. And if you like the kind of coverage we're doing, if you appreciate us breaking down what's going to be on your ballot, consider supporting that work by becoming a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor. You can do that at membership.citycast.fm. We will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Talk to you then.
We've only had one justice ever lose, and that was in 2005. His name was Russell Nigro. He was a Philadelphia justice who ran for retention in the middle of the pay raise scandal.
People were upset that lawmakers were getting raises, and he, in some ways, took the fall.
If you talk to the people who are upset, they'd also say the Supreme Court waved the way for the precedent that allowed the lawmakers to raise their pay. But look, I mean, who wants to relitigate 20 years ago? We have 2 years ago to relitigate.